Welcome back. Hi everyone. Thanks for joining for this session. So it's an international session to talk about how friendly the ecosystem is, the regional ecosystem is for international founders. I have three great guests with me today. I'm going to start with one that it's not physically here, Carolina. She is a founder originally from Singapore, and she is not only the founder of and the head, but also the one of the directors of Founders Institute. In the studio, I also have Amy, that is the senior marketing manager for North America at Frankfurt Rhein Main GmbH, and Alice, the marketing director of Tech Quartier, right? So maybe I will start with Amy with a very general question about about the ecosystem, how friendly it is, what are the main plus that the regional ecosystem has for international business to settle here?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I could go on for hours about it, but I will try and be as brief as possible. I think one of the major points that we impress upon the foreign companies that we're attracting to the region is that we are rated the #1 global hub for connectivity. So, Germany has a world famous freeway system, the Autobahn. We have 2 major rivers running through the region. We have incredible high-speed rail. And if you know nothing else about Frankfurt, you know we have an airport. So that's really, really helpful for us in being able to communicate to companies that might want to settle here how easy it is for them to access all of those points of entries for goods, services, travel. Of course, the second thing that Frankfurt is very well known for is its banks. As the banking capital, we are the financial center of Europe. There are 160 international banks here, also institutions like the Deutsche Bundesbank, the European Central Bank, the Deutsche Börse, which is the German stock exchange, BaFin, which is the German financial regulator, which tells you a few things about Frankfurt. We're very serious about being experts and creating a very stable environment. So I think that that's something that people really take a lot of comfort in when they come here, is that things are being handled very, very professionally. The other thing that's really notable about Frankfurt is how many international companies, market leaders, choose to have headquarters here. So we have over 150 headquarters of market leading companies that choose to have their headquarters here in Frankfurt. Frankfurt is a business city. We have 12 major industries. Again, I won't list all of them, but some of the ones that you might know less about are automotive, life sciences, and ITC, which of course, ICT, sorry, in German and English, I get that backwards sometimes. But so we are the digital hub of Germany in the Frankfurt Rhein Main region. We have the largest internet exchange point in the world, the fastest. It's called the DKIX. We have over 1,000 network partners connected to the DKIX, which means that we are incredibly well networked. And the last point that I'll make, because like I said, I could go on forever, but I won't, is the incredible strength of the local market. As we sit here in Frankfurt right now, we have about 6 million potential customers for any given startup within 60 kilometers radius and 47 million within 200 kilometers. So if you take that and you look at the GDP on a per capita basis in Germany, which is about 20% higher than the European average, and you add to that the Frankfurt Rhein Main region has a 20% higher GDP than the rest of Germany, you can really see that there is a purchasing power in this region that is going to be unparalleled in the rest of Europe.
Yes. Well, I hope a lot of international people are listening to this, because I think you just gave a lot of reasons for them to settle business here. I would like now to ask Alice about what Tech Quartier is doing, what you hear in your community, because you also have a lot of international founders there. Can you highlight some of these to us?
Hello. Tech Quartier is a startup hub in downtown Frankfurt. We have more than 300 startups in our membership base, and we have big connections to banks and some of the really interesting people who are making change and innovation in our community. we have an interesting spot. Also, I want to add to Amy's too, is there are more than 100 universities and Hochschulen in Hessen alone. So that adds to the Frankfurt scene, and that's a big part of Tech Quartier. Internationally, we just signed a new partner from Bologna, CRIF. So there is really interest in Frankfurt to be international. In 2019, our membership base, if we broke it down, the 2 other countries besides Germany who were part of our ecosystem, Israel and Ireland. I mean, obviously, reason Ireland. Israel is a super innovative community, so we're seeing definitely Frankfurt is an epicenter for international business, but then that expands into startups so they can have a bigger reach with the community that's already here. And Tech Quartier, of course, we are an international company. Our business is done in English. Our staff is everybody from Serbians to people from Kosovo to Americans. So we represent the face of that as well. But Frankfurt's super international, and yeah, it's a great place to start, and Tech Quartier really reflects that
Yes.
in our business.
Yes, and Tech Quartier is doing a great job. By the way.
Thank you.
Now I would move to Carolina. Even to ask you, Carolina, so why Frankfurt? Why did you settle business here? And what has been your experience as an international founder here?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me. Do you Yeah?
Can hear you.
Okay. As an international founder, so I'm from Singapore originally, and I worked and lived in more than 6 countries in 4 different regions. So when we decided to move to Germany in the beginning, it was also looking into how is the ecosystem when it comes to supporting local entrepreneurships. A lot of the different benefits that are mentioned already by Amy and also Elise as well. But also looking into the family side of the picture when it comes to how can this ecosystem support me as we were when I made the move from Abu Dhabi, for example, to set up Anahead. How can the ecosystem support also the personal part of it? So I think Frankfurt is more and more exciting as a founder. When I arrived here in Germany 6 years ago, the ecosystem was less vibrant, and now with all the different supports when it comes to the number of co-working spaces, Tech Quartier, being one of the forefront of trying to also support by connecting all the different ecosystems, startup Safari. Now I got to know also Amy from Frankfurt Rhein Main GmbH as well. So I think the amount of, for example, in terms of structures, communities, funding, which hasn't been really spoke about. I've just read that I think the funding in Frankfurt is on average much more than compared to the other region at 300K for early stage startup funding. So these are a few of the different, I think, support that as a founder, when I look into the access to the market, the ease of starting a business, Frankfurt is at 22 globally. And also the support in addition to the founder personally in terms of family was a great place and a choice to be.
Okay, thank you, Carolina. And by the way, do you want to just as well highlight what the work that you have been doing as well with Founders Institute here in Frankfurt?
Yeah, so I was privileged also to be invited to by Founder Institute. So Founder Institute, for those who do not know, is one of the world's largest pre-seed accelerator program. They have chapters in around 6 cities in Germany and in 180 cities worldwide. So they wanted to start a chapter, and Pedro is also my fellow co-director as well, to bring to bring more support for early stage founders, which I think is really important. So founders with the ideation stage that really do not yet have a team, that also wants a bit of structure when it comes to bringing from ideation, product development, bringing the product to route to market. So there is a 14-week sprint that the founders goes through. So, and I'm also a benefit of this program because I'm actually a graduate with their program in Berlin. That's how I got into understanding this. And I think this is also then a start of, for me, an understanding of how we can connect leveraging organization such as Founder Institute to support founders in now putting Frankfurt in the world map, alongside also to the rest of the hotspots for founders and entrepreneurs around the world.
Carolina, I was indeed making this question because, yeah, indeed, I've been inside the cohort as well, and it's very interesting that both on the first cohort and especially now on the second cohort, it's a very diverse group of people. I think we were counting and there was more than 18 different nationalities, which is great. And also in terms of the previous panel was about female entrepreneurship. We also managed to get a 50-50 ratio, which is super for the normal KPIs. So that's why I was trying to highlight on that direction. But when it comes to communities, Amy, maybe you have also some numbers of the different communities that are here in the region. Would you like to highlight some of them?
Absolutely, I've got all the numbers. So again, I'll try and be brief, but historically one of the largest communities, expat communities in Frankfurt has been the American community, myself included, so I have to start there. There are 16,000 Americans living in the Frankfurt Rhein Main region. Most of the foreign direct investment from the United States comes to the Frankfurt Rhein Main region as opposed to other places in Germany, so that's very, very important for us. We also have the largest American chamber and the largest American consulate in the world here in Frankfurt. So those are really important resources for Americans. Equivalent size is the Indian community. There are also 16,000 Indian expats. There are, don't quote me on this, but 330 Indian companies, but a lot of Indian companies, huge Indian presence here. There are 9 of the top 20 tech companies in India present here in the Frankfurt Rhein Main region. And we see an ever-growing community of Indian business here. The next largest community is the French community. Of course, Frankfurt has a huge connection with Paris, with France itself. We're very close to Paris, and I would definitely say that the French business community is incredibly active, and they have great wine, so if you ever get invited, definitely go. The next largest is the Chinese community. There are 12,500 Chinese expats living here. And the top 5 commercial banks in China all have headquarters in Germany, and they're all based here. And on top of long-term residents that are Chinese nationals, there are also 28,000 Chinese students studying in the Frankfurt Rhein Main region, so that's very important. I should have mentioned before, there are 10,000 international students from India. And then 2 others that are notable are we have the largest Korean business community in Europe, so not just in Germany, but in the whole of Europe, and we have an incredibly active and very, very strong Japanese business community here as well. That's, again, just the abbreviated list, but certainly, so those are some of our core communities. In total, there are 180 nationalities present living in the Frankfurt Rhein Main region. That accounts for about 12% of the total population across the region, and in the city of Frankfurt, it's a bit higher. It's about 28% of the population is foreign national. And also one thing, just from a business perspective, of course, diversity on its own is a good thing, but also there are 29 consulates and country missions here in Frankfurt. So in terms of getting access to visas for business travel, to be able to utilize the connectivity that I spoke about earlier, Frankfurt has more access to consular services than any other city in Germany. Yeah, go ahead, sorry. No, I was gonna talk a little bit about talent, but I can. I just wanted to piggyback on my comments about, because originally when we had talked about communities and we had talked about how diversity might help the ecosystem, which is part of the reason I wanted to highlight the international students in the region, but so 12% international students in total in the region, and there are 280 total students studying at Frankfurt Rhein Main region. 150,000 of them are STEM students, so science, technology, engineering, math students, and 50,000 of them are economics. So I think that really shows not only the region's commitment, but the students' commitment to becoming a part of the business community. And I think that that's why you're seeing the startup community and the entrepreneurship in the region develop, because I think when all of these cultures come together and they have a really, really solid education to start from and the infrastructure like partners like Tech Quartier and Founders Institute to help them get their ideas off the ground. I think it's just an amazing atmosphere.
Yes, thank you. Indeed, my question now would be if Tech Quartier already feels a bit what Amy is just describing, so that these communities now start to get hands-on and to bringing some results into the startups. I don't know, getting new ideas, new projects, scaling up business into new geographies.
Sure. So I actually have a good example of something that we've been working on, and not to be so marketing Tech Quartier, but for me personally, this is an amazing project. We have started, first of all, Corona is the elephant in the room. It's definitely affected everything that we do, how we outreach, how we communicate, which the plus side is we're starting to communicate more virtually. So that means our reach is not just meeting people in a coffee shop, that still happens, but we can connect virtually. And the more and more people who get used to this, the more outreach we have. So we started an education program. We do tech towns with Eintracht Frankfurt. We've done that for a while to teach entrepreneurship. That Corona, bam, we had to switch totally from being an in-person to being a virtual outlet, and we developed our own platform. Now we have students from all around the world accessing that. So we went, hey, this is cool. What about AI? One of the technologies that we are not finding the talent that we need in time to do some of the things we want to do. We all have ideas, but we might not have the developers or the programmers. Who knows Python? Raise your hand. So we developed a AI talent program with Hessen Ministerium, and it's the amount of support we're getting for this just shows that there is a need for an international community to come together on a platform and learn. We had people from every continent on the planet, except Antarctica. Polar bears don't know AI, but they came together to apply for this program. So this is something we're working for and seeing a need. The connection between talent. We put startups in to have actual case studies, and then we have ING, Deutsche Bundesbank, people who are helping us support this program as well. So yes, there's an international connection, and it's just, for me, it's just catching fire. So it's an excellent time right now to be in this community and having outreach in Frankfurt. Yeah, epicenter.
Well, that's great. That's also from my side. While doing, for example, Frankfurt Valley, I also noticed that more and more there are a lot of success stories that we should highlight from international people, and that's what we focus on really doing bridges between ecosystems. So yeah, I always try to see the bright side, the good stuff, but to prepare this session, indeed, I made a poll in my community, a survey where I was asking directly, okay, is Frankfurt an ecosystem friendly for international founders or not? So the results that I got after more than 100 replies was that 1/3 of the people still replied that no, but on the other side, two-thirds says yes. But more than 50% said that there is a lot to improve. So maybe I will start now with Carolina. What do you feel that we as a region, we as different stakeholders can do in order to make the ecosystem become more international friendly? Do you have some suggestions? You are in mute.
Can you hear me now?
Every day.
Yes.
I'm really confused with what Alice has mentioned when it comes to also that talent in general. Now, because of the current situation, all of us are going global in that sense, and we are also talking about the issue also of, or rather, the topic of startups being global from day one. Right, so because of this whole phase of digitization, and Frankfurt is catching fire. I'm also the founder of a digital mid-career talent platform called And Ahead, and part of our work is really connecting companies to mid-career talents. And because of this whole need to go virtual, even from this current setting where 3 of you are in sits in the same room, and myself coming in, being able to join digitally is already, the first signs of this whole blended approach. And I think the push for this from the organizations for founders to have this global mindset from day one, reaching out to global customers from day one, leveraging the current situation, not seeing it as a challenge. I mean, it's really difficult for many companies right now, but now opening up the whole ecosystem and now being able to compete on a very same foot level to say that, hey, it's not just here, but we have the structure in place to go global. I think that will be one of the next wish that I have, because I think one of the facts that I've also came across is that Frankfurt only has 9%, maybe in the last few years a bit more international founders, right, compared to Berlin with 43%. So having this digitized approach and more acceptance for virtual sessions allows us to then move forward. So one example that I'll quickly give is this year, for example, I was then working with the Singapore Economic Development Board in their Singapore Global Networks, where we collaborate to see how can we bridge talent opportunities between Europe and Singapore. So can we do that with more and more different governments, organizations around the world? Can we have more support when it comes to bridging more of this global connectiveness that Amy brought about, but not just on the physical infrastructure, but also on the global digitized channels?
Okay, thank you, Carolina. So I think just as a sum up, it's a bit of culture and mindset from the beginning to try that, to do a bit the shift, if I get it right. Amy, from your side, what could you say about this?
Yeah, I do hear that criticism often, that maybe we need to be doing more. I really don't see it. I think that if you look at everything that's being done, sure, maybe we don't have the same level of international founders that Berlin might, but we are focusing in the areas that Frankfurt is incredibly suited to, and we're growing very, very quickly. We are the fastest growing fintech hub in the world. So we are focusing on the things where Frankfurt already has strengths, and we're really, really building a strong ecosystem. I mean, you all are great examples of that, and I do have some stats that I don't know off the top of my head, but I did want to say a few very important key statistics. Sorry, I feel like the numbers lady, but it's very important. So first off, we were ranked the #1 most innovative economy in the world, Germany as a whole. So we, being here in Germany, already are well ahead of the rest of Europe, the rest of the world in terms of innovation. We are Frankfurt Rhein Main is in the top 20 global ecosystem for knowledge, the top 25 global ecosystem for fintech. We have 80 co-working spaces. We have 16 incubators, including Tech Quartier. We have 21 accelerator programs, including founders, and we have 16 platforms for information just to be able to understand what's going on in the startup community. You put on top of that all of the access to capital and resources like WeBank, and again, I could do a whole list, but I think that everything is here. And if you feel like you're not finding what you need, come to one of us, because we know where to find all of those resources. We know how to get you to the right place. I think it's really more communication than anything, and just getting into the right channels, meeting the right people. So if you're having a hard time or you feel like you've come to a stumbling block, please come to any of the economic development experts or accelerators. We are very friendly people, we're very nice, and we will help you gladly.
Thank you. I think that's a great answer, and it goes to some discussions that we as a group had, or that I have a lot with some of other founders, is that sometimes the potential is not visible from the outside. So it's like an hidden champion that we need to do a bit more effort to make it visible to the outside stakeholders. And that's what we all are trying to do. So thank you, Amy, for the answer. Alice, do you want to?
Sure, I can add something really fast. I work in innovation and startups, and you can't innovate unless you see a problem, right? That's essentially what innovation is. So Frankfurt's wonderful, Hessen is wonderful, we are going in the right direction, but there's things we need to improve. And definitely collaboration, I mean, we just talked about communication and collaboration go hand in hand. we, with so many universities, with Goethe here, with Darmstadt just down the road, we need to develop better collaboration between university and business. There's so much talent, untapped talent. That's a place where we need to work on. We need to work on better collaboration with government. There is questions about profit sharing, taxes. If you don't pull in an income and you're a startup founder, is there a tax break? Is there something that they can actually feel less pain? I think also venture capital. That's always the question in every startup ecosystem. There's always a need for more, always a need for more. And I think that's the same here. I think there are a lot of startups start up with their money that they've saved forever, and they ask their parents, they ask their friends, and they go into it full-hearted. But then we need to see more support, profit sharing, things that are so deep in the culture that need to be re-examined. These are big things, but we're in the right direction and asking the right questions. So the future is bright, but there's definitely things that we can improve as we go along. Yeah.
Great. So just to give you a context, I think I accelerated. We still have 15 minutes left, so which gives 5 minutes each. So Carolina, for example, what would you imagine that Frankfurt could do in order really to promote these international bridges? In your case, what are the regions that you see as a potential to explore synergies with other ecosystems?
Yeah, I mean, Germany as a whole, I think mentioned also by Amy and Elise, has a very good international reputation. You know, there's a reputation for trust and credibility. And coming from Asia, Singapore, right, where Asia is one of the fastest also growing economies with the largest population size as well. I've seen also a lot of organizations trying to either go into Asia as founders being here, or founders in Asia trying to come and enter the European markets. And Germany is definitely one of their first stops. So I would really try to look into programs that can facilitate this bridge. I know that there are quite a few, and Pedro, you know well as well, being part of Mainstage Incubator, and also other organization that does this bilateral bridges or bridges across different economies to help support the startups in also the scale-up process, because it's not only the starting up, but also the support on how they can enter a market easier, and also understand also the clients easier. So I think that will be great.
Thank you, Carolina. So you just mentioned Mainstage Incubator. It's another great example, and maybe I take the time just to highlight what they are doing. So, for example, they have been supporting Indian startups to incorporate here in Frankfurt. Not only Indian, obviously, we also support other regions, Australia, Argentina. There are multiple examples of success cases. It's a great example. Another program that I've been, and you just mentioned Singapore. I've been indeed in contact with Scalar 8, for example, and supporting at least 3 startups from Singapore to come to Germany. It's another great project. So yeah, those bridges are there. There are a lot of programs. We just need to make them more visible. Amy, do you want to maybe highlight some regions that you would like to explore more, or actions that you have for the future that are very disruptive or that will support this mission?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I would say from my personal view of how our type of economic development works, it's always been very relationship driven, and it's always been very travel driven. You know, we have a team in the US and a team here, because the idea is that the team in the US meets the companies there, and once they've decided that they want to look at Frankfurt, then we help them out here on this end. Of course, we're not receiving any travel at the moment from anywhere in the world, really. So we're really having to reevaluate how we're getting that information to our partners so that we make sure that we're staying relevant, that we're communicating in an appropriate way, because obviously some people just cannot move forward with projects right now for a lot of reasons. But we want to make sure that people realize that we're still here, we're still accessible, we're still supportive. We want to find ways to do things virtually. We're really trying to digitize as much as possible. You know, things like we're looking at how we can access banking from afar, how you can do a company incorporation from afar. You know, all of those are projects that right now we have a bit more time to work on, because usually we would be going to these big conferences and meeting people in a very tangible physical way. You know, like going to South by Southwest, going to Davos, going to where all of these,
But maybe this also creates even more opportunities, because once you have the opportunity to do it digitally, maybe it opens up a new world somehow.
Well, and it gives a great opportunity for us to do things like this, you know? And not only are people seeing this live today, but I'm going to be able to utilize this as marketing material to be able to communicate very succinctly and effectively in a video format to somebody in a very, you know, non-intrusive way. They're just going to see a chat about Frankfurt. It's going to help me, help you all come in contact with startups, and ultimately convey the messages that I have through digital channels. And, you know, maybe if I were still planning to travel to the US 2 weeks every quarter, I might not have been here for this, or I might not have had time to be able to take this day and do something that's very constructive that we can use digitally. So I think that it's just forcing us to evaluate all the tools that we have already at our disposal, but actually use them. Because we've all had Zoom, we've all had LinkedIn forever, you know, or not forever, but for a long period of time. But we've never really utilized them to its full potential. And now what we're seeing is people actually figuring out a way to leverage all these technologies successfully to be able to carry on. And especially in digital spaces, you know, you're seeing still, even in such a hard time as we're facing right now, just booming businesses in certain parts, in certain sectors. And that's because of the digital infrastructure that we have available here, but also globally to be able to connect with international partners. So I think that, of course, there are a ton of very, very negative things going on right now. We can't ignore that. But I think there are, you know, little successes that we can take away that are going to help us going forward, because we are being forced into a new modern age.
Thank you. That was a great message. Alice, from your side, do you want to give some inputs as well, personal or from Tech Quartier?
Sure. Amy, that was so good.
It was really good.
It was great. To add on to that, Tech Quartier also, and we're in Mindspace, they have co-working space. So I think the co-working area is going to be super important as we move forward, because you can't innovate without humans, right? You can't do this alone. We're monkeys. We're used to being in a culture, a society. So that's something that we need to keep in mind, to be digital, yes, but also foster real human bonds between people. I'm going to jump, and it's going to sound a little crazy, but one thing I'm really excited about that Tech Quartier has kind of thrown their hat into the ring is the big financial data cluster that's coming out of Hessen. That's really, Frankfurt's really becoming the center of that, the Gaia X project. Yeah, we're making all this data, we're making all this machine learning, we're making all this information. Where does it live? Where's the cloud that can support this? This is a project that once it's 100% secure and the ball really starts rolling, it will change this area, because big players coming together to make a place for your data. I have a lot of points.
I guess this could be rolled out worldwide.
Yeah, totally. We have CESA just down the street in Darmstadt who are working on Galileo. We have really interesting things happening, of course. Tech Quartier, we're part of D-Hub, a huge collection of hubs, and we are the FinTech hub of Germany, of course. But there's great things going on around. Fresenius is in Bad Homburg. We have all these companies besides our banks, which ECB, Bundesbank, happy they're here, but we can all start to think more interesting about how we connect all these industries. And don't be so fractured, because we all are using the same technology. We want the same talents. We want to make this world a better place. Generally, that's why startups are. They want to make things better. So I think embracing that, keeping it human, looking at potential innovation as we go out, and uniting all these really wonderful pieces of this beautiful buffet that we have, and feeding everybody from it.
Great. Well, that's a great message, and I think once again we are very lucky to be in the center of Europe, to have all these resources that we have been discussing, and yeah, we have a great community. So some of the numbers that you just mentioned, I think some of them are from the Startup Genome, and I remember that indeed Frankfurt was one of the best ecosystems in terms of community, that we were, I'm not sure if we were on the top 5, but it was really one of the best ecosystems in terms of community. Well, we have just some minutes left, so my idea was just to do really a final wrap-up and maybe to give it a number from 1 to 10, where 1 would be the worst and 10 the best. Carolina, how much would you give to Frankfurt as an international founder? Yeah, it's maybe a bit...
Yeah, I think it's a fantastic way to rate this. I started with 6. After listening to all the resources provided by Amy and Elise, I give it a 7. I think one thing that we didn't really touch on about is family, personal life. You know, a large part of, you know, where founders choose to make also their place for business and also their home is also the standard of living in Frankfurt. With the beautiful river that runs across the city, a very small, comfortable ecosystem where everyone gets to know each other very well compared to the large metropolitans of the world. So this is something that I really, really appreciate as a founder. So kudos to, you know, also all the support that comes in to bring founders here to this place. Yeah. So
Thank you,
7.
Carolina. Thank you for all the inputs and participation. Amy, I know you will give 10. You don't need to answer. It's going to be a 10.
Well, I was going to say, of course, FRM GmbH is a government-funded agency by the 33 cities, counties, and states that make up the Frankfurt metropolitan region. So I am professionally obliged to say 10, of course, but I do actually believe it. And I hope that the fact that I work for a government-funded agency doesn't diminish my enthusiasm for the ecosystem. And I can only echo what you said about closeness. I have lived in Germany before for a long time, but I've only recently moved to the Frankfurt region. I've been here for about 6 months. And I think that within that 6-month period, I know most people within this ecosystem, even during a pandemic. So I think what you said is absolutely true. It is very close-knit. It's very supportive, and you can definitely find the resources that you're looking for. So you just need to get in contact with us.
Thank you. And I think, if I remember, one project that I did with Frankfurt Rhein Main GmbH, for example, was the Startup Guide. It's another example for international people to just have a book and read all about it. It's a nice format. So yeah, if once you need more info, it's there.
If you need information, we have it.
Yes. And Alice, last but not the least.
Startup Guide will be all about Frankfurt in April too. I think you guys know that, the new one coming up. Yeah. I'm kind of on the pragmatic side, which is surprising for an American. I would say 7 because you can't excel if you don't look at the issues and try to push yourself a little more. I would like to see more support of female foundership, personally. I think it's something like 16% of all founders are female, and that's 50% of the population. That doesn't make sense. So we need to support these females. We need to support more diversity. If I ride the U-Bahn, I hear many languages. Let's support these people too in founding. I think that's why Frankfurt can do better. And I've stated some other reasons we can do better, but 7, that's not so bad. I mean, we have places to go, but we have a solid foundation of who we are. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I would give it a 7 as well. So indeed, I believe that it's always good to have room for improvement, and that the diversity is a key topic. And I'm one of the advocates about this topic, diversity, it's not only about gender and nationality. We need to really bring those topics more, not only in the corporate, but on the startup level. I think it's where the results will be even more visible. And yeah, I think inside this panel, maybe that's a good takeaway, that we can all, as stakeholders, work more on this in order to make the 7 goes to the 10. Okay, I think now it's time to really end up the session. And I think up next is going to be the part 2 of the ecosystem tour, the documentary that you watched the first part yesterday. So now you have the opportunity to watch the part 2. And well, I would like to say once again, thank you for joining and hope to see you again soon.
And thank you so much for having us. It was great.
Thank you,
it was
Pedro.
an awesome experience.
And I'm so happy to meet you guys. Yeah, super. Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, Carol.